G'day, welcome to my second run through of Washington's Army. I'm still a bit fresh on these rules. The first game I did in two parts. I did the setup and the game. I'll put a link to the setup and the game in the top corner there so you can go back and check that out. Setup's quite involved. That's one of the great things about this game. I'm going to change a bit from the first run through I did. These rules were primarily written for 15mm to support Peter Pig's excellent figure range. It has suggestions for playing 28s. It says to base them on a 40 by 40 and then increase all the measurements by 1.5. My figures are actually based on a 50mm, so I've just decided to double everything. So instead of playing on a 3 by 5 foot table, I've ended up 6 by 10, and I'm just going to double all the measurements. Just makes it easier, I think. You can see there I'm already deployed and I've done all the first half, but once again I'm going to run through it because there's quite a bit in the setup and there's still some stuff to go over. So let's start at the beginning, and number one in the setup is calculate composition of armies. 500 points for a standard game. Well, I've painted a few figures since my last game. I've added the 71st Scots. I added 6 bases of those. I've increased Hartley's regiment by a base, and I've also added a base to the French. So I've managed to get my armies up to 550 points. The British army is a little bit different than last time. I've taken out the Queen's Rangers and put in some Hessier Grenadiers, but we'll cover that when we go through the armies. So I've calculated the armies. Step 2 is to choose 8 pieces of scenery. I'll detail that. Determine the quality of the mounted commanders. I'll cover that when I go through the armies. A lot of event dice. If you haven't seen my other video, each army gets 60 dice. 10 of those must be rolled to see who's the attacker, and from that 10 you can add up to 15 more dice to try and dedicate being the attacker. The dice are rolled. 5s and 6s are deemed successes, and then the results compared, the one with the most 5s and 6s is obviously going to be the attacker. There's advantages to being the attacker, and there's advantages to being the defender, but either way you don't want to lose that roll by a lot. Obviously I'm playing solo, so I can't secretly dedicate my dice without myself knowing. So once again, I've gone onto a dice rolling program, put the 10 compulsory dice in, and then I've rolled 5 5-sided dice for the other 15. And both sides came up with 20 dice apiece, and those were rolled, and both sides come up with 7 victories, or 7 successes. So that was a draw. But in these rules, the Americans were slightly less aggressive in this war, so they get a 1 less success. So that means they went down to 6. So the British scraped in and become the attackers. And the important thing to note there that there's only a 1 point difference, which will work out quite well for the defenders later on. So that's done. Point 6 is the defender places the Traverse Road. Point 7, the defender places the here to there road. The defender deploys all scenery. The table is divided into 6 sections, left and right and centre, and defender's half and attacker's half, and then at least 2 pieces of scenery must go in each of those 6 sections before you can place any others. So as I say, that's all done. I'll highlight that on the video now. The defender deploys 4 objectives is point 9. So you can see the lady feeding the chickens. She's one objective in that village. The guy with the barrel is off into the woods to have a few drinks. He's the second objective. The man on the hill that's tired because he's carried that sack of coal right up there, he's the third objective, and the man hiding in the centre of the paddock, not attracting attention to himself, is the last objective. Now the attacker removes 1 objective. So the lady's fed the chickens, she's taken the kids back inside, so there's no point in having that. Farmstead is rubbish. So that's the one the attackers removed. They're going to concentrate their attack on the American right and centre. Point 10, the defender attempts to redeploy scenery items. He rolls 1d6 and adds 2, and that's how many attempts he gets. So he can't redeploy anything that has an objective marker on it. So that can be quite strategic for the defender to place markers on scenery he doesn't want moved. So the attacker rolls his d6, and in this case he got 3 successes. So he adds the 2, he's got 5 dice to place on any piece of terrain he wants to move, and then he rolls those dice, and any 4s means he succeeds in moving it. So he placed 2 on the maize field where you can currently see the British moving through, and tried to move that and failed, and he placed 3 on the cornfield to the left left of that and passed and got 2 successes. So he moved the maize field over to the back of the chicken lady's farm. Step 11, both players choose their flanking force. The defender gets up to 2 units, the attacker gets 3. The British have chosen their Indians and their converged light companies, and the Americans have chosen a standard foot unit and a small unit of cavalry. So there's the flanking forces. They'll roll off. The first one to get to 9 actually gets their flanking force on, and the other player's flanking force goes into their reserve. Step 12, you note down which section of the table you're deploying on. The Americans must push a commander in each of the 3 sections, centre and left and right flank. The British only have 2 commanders, so they must choose 2 sections to go in. They do, however, have the 16th Dragoons. They don't need a command, they're detached. So the attacker will deploy 18 inches in because we've doubled all the measurements, and the defender gets to deploy 36 inches in. We've done all the deployment. We'll do a walk through the field and have a look now, and then we'll do the depletion rolls. Right, we'll start with the British. Looking from their right flank, you can see the 16th Dragoons there. They're sneaking around the pine trees, looking to either take that hill or ride right round the back of them. The problem they'll have is the militia currently stationed in the farm, but they are a bit busy cooking up fat chickens. Moving across the head to their road into the British centre. Oh, there we have it. The mighty 71st Scots. That's that I've just painted up. And behind them in support is 6 stands of the 64th. You can see their commander there. He's rated as average, I think. He's 2, and their commander-in-chief, who's excellent. Deployment went off without a hitch, but except for the loss of 1 cow. Moving into the farmstead, we have the last battalion in that command, which is the 46th, and they're moving through the farmstead to the other side. On the British left, we have the Hessians, the Knop Regiment, and the converged Hessian Grenadiers. Their commander is excellent. He has a gun, and we have the converged British Grenadiers in support. They're going to have kind words to the men in the paddock and then proceed to take the hill. Over onto the American left, we have a regiment of rifle arms and militia lining the fence line there. Moving up the road, we have the 2nd Maryland and a gun, and here's the commander of their brigade at the leading way. He's a 2, which is average, or fair, I think they're called. Moving into the centre command, it has a unit on the centre left of militia deployed in open order. Those 2 bits of rough ground represent open order. You must have 2 bases of that in your front line to be considered open order. The commander's kind of close here between the 2 brigades to try and keep them both moving. Into the centre, we have the 9th Pennsylvania and the 5th Pennsylvania lining the fence line there, ready to face down the Scots. Crossing the small stream, we have the newly strengthened French. They're rated as veterans, and Hartley's regiment next to them. And in the woods, there's another militia unit in open order. All graded as average other than the French, which are veterans. And on the hill, they have a gun. So that's the deployment done. Now we're going to do late loss rolls, part 15, and then 16 is carry out event results. With the late loss rolls, it's just a way of making the defender's force less than the attacker's force. I mean, if you've got two equally pointed armies, why would one want to attack one in a defensive position? So this just evens up the odds, and I think it makes for an interesting and more realistic game. It represents units that haven't got into position yet or are late arriving to the battle or casualties of previous fights. So the Americans lost the attack-defend roll by 1, so that means they must roll 3 dice for every unit. On a 5 or a 6, they must take a stand off, or if they didn't want to remove any stands, they have to take the unit off completely and place it in reserve. If they take a stand off, it's lost. It's a permanent loss for the battle and it won't show up later on. You add a dice if it's a raw unit. They don't have any, and you minus a dice if it is a veteran unit and they have the French. So we're just going to start down here on the left. So militia units, class is average. They're going to roll 3 dice and they're going to get one success. So, or 1 fail, you could call it. So I think they're going to take 1 base off. So that's a permanent loss to that unit. It didn't arrive. Those boys weren't keen. They sloped off. The 2nd Maryland, they're going to roll another 3. Okay, so they've got 2 fails. So they can either take 2 bases off and lose those as permanent losses and stay on the table, or they can remove the unit into the reserve at full strength. I think we're going to move that into the reserve because it's on a flank that's not really threatened. And at the end of the depletion roll, the defender must have 1 infantry unit in the reserve for every 3 full infantry units that is deployed on the table. And the American have 8 units on the table, so they've got to end up with at least 2 units in reserve. So I think we're going to put that one in reserve. Let's take a look at the centre 3. We'll start with the militia on the left. And they're going to get 2. So it's whether I want to put those in reserve or not. 1 more unit has to come off. I think they're going to go into the reserve as well, after a bit of deliberation. So they move into the reserve at full strength. I can now keep everything on the table, but my line's going to thin out. So I was originally thinking 3's not a bad number to roll, but I'm not rolling so high. Let's go with the 9th Pennsylvania. Let's see how they get on. And they're fine. Those boys are keen. They're up for a fight. And the 5th Pennsylvania to their right, they're going to lose 1 base. And I think they need to stay on, so they're going to take a permanent loss of 1 base. Finally, we have the critical American right. Luckily, this is a good reason to have 6 base units or 7 base units, because they can afford to take a base or 2 off. Let's start with the French. They are veterans, so they remove a dice, so they're only rolling 2. Oh, and of course they're going to roll. Of course they're going to roll double. Do they stay on or do they come off? Jeepers. Jeepers. Might have to pause and think about this. Oh, lordy. Why did you roll doubles? Why did you get 5 and 6, you plonkers? The problem with taking them off is you can only bring 1 reserve on at a time. So, and I mean, I could take them off, but what if Hartley's regiment rolls 2 as well? So, jeepers. I think they're going to take some losses. So I needn't have bothered painting up that extra base of French because it came off anyway. Right, let's try Hartley's regiment. They're going to roll 3. Come on, Hartley's boys. Come on. They're going to lose a stand as well. That's the one in the bushes that can come off. So this flank's not really keen on a fight. And lastly, we've got the militia in the trees. And they're going to lose 2 bases. That's a heck of a lot of losses on that flank. They must have had trouble getting to the start line. I really don't want to leave the trees exposed. Let's take 2 stands off. My God, that was a lot of losses. So all up, the Americans lost 7 bases before they even started. So that's bad news. Bad news. Bad news for the Americans. So you can see the American lines thinned out quite substantially over there by the chicken lady's farm. There's a massive hole. Luckily, there's no British to exploit it. But the British will be coming on strong and hard, and the Americans will need to get some reinforcements on the table as quick as they can. Right, we're into the event rolls. So you remember back, we had 60 points to spend. Each side spent 20 of those on being the attacker or the defender. That left them 40 points left to line up into the pre-battle events, scenario events. This is kind of a simple way of generating some chaos before the battle. There's 9 categories, and each side must put a minimum of 1 point in a category and a maximum of 9. So the first category is subterfuge and bluff. The second one is clarity, battle plan clarity. Number 3 is political pressure. Scouting is 4. Supplies is 5. Artillery is 6. Random events is 7. Weather is 8. And local support is 9. So as I do playing solo, I just went into the random dice rolling site and entered in 9 times 9-sided dice and pushed the roll button, and it gives you a total. When that total equaled 40, I just noted down the numbers and did that for both sides and put them in the category. And that ended up with the British getting 1 point in the first category, subterfuge and bluff, and the Americans ended up with 4. So we're going to roll those dice, compare them, looking for 5s and 6s as a success. So the Americans have come up with 2 successes. So that's a difference of 2. So the Americans win the first one, and that reads, General Patrick has fallen for our movement deception in the hollows. The opponent, in this case the British, must remove 1 unit of cavalry or infantry to the reinforcement area. So after a little bit of deliberation, the British decided to move their 16th Dragoons off into the reinforcement area. I mean, they were right down on the right flank and they weren't going to do much. And also, coming on as a reinforcement, they can move quite quickly. So I could bring them on anywhere on the pitch. So they went into the reinforcement. So a good win for the Americans, but not too much damage done to the British. So moving on to the second category, which is battle plan clarity. The British ended up with 4 in there, and so did the Americans. So let's roll those and see how we get on. So that's 2 successes apiece. So that ends up as nothing. No one gets any advantage there. So we'll move on to political pressure, which is number 3. The British have got 8 in this, and so have the Americans. Okay, the British won this by 1, and it says Congress has issued rights for indigenous German crop planters. This has been widely mistranslated into German as ingenious crop planters. Some German troops have absconded to try their luck at crop planting. Remove 1 infantry base from any Ruhr or Hessian unit. This can be from on the table or off the table. Well, the Americans don't have any German troops, and they don't have any Ruhr troops, so they got a lucky escape with that one. Moving on to scouting, British had 9 in scouting, and they also, their army, which is late war British, gains a +3 for scouting. So they're up 12 dice. The Americans have got just 1. Oh, this is going to be killer. Yeah, that's a win by more than 4. So +4. Sir, fine assessment of the situation. We will react accordingly. Move 2 own units into unoccupied buildings or wood scenery pieces anywhere on the table. This includes being put into contact with a linear or touching, not touched by enemy unit. There must be a clear path from each unit back to the unit's baseline edge and not interrupted by enemy foot units. Unit may change formation or direction if desired. Your flankers total is immediately awarded 2 successes. Well, that's a big win. Let's take a look at that. So apart from gaining 2 flank march tokens, which is a pretty good bonus, all they really did was move their 46th Regiment up to the edge of the buildings that they kind of already occupied. They couldn't get into these woods here because they are covered by the Americans. The chicken lady's farm is also busy with people eating chickens, so they couldn't go in there. And they can't go into these woods because that's already occupied. They could, however, move the 64th up to the edge of the wood here, which I mean is going to make them hard to activate, and they will have to make a disorder roll when they leave the woods, but if you've got the advantage, why not try it? You can only go horribly wrong, and probably will. So there you go. So the British Central Brigade has taken as much advantage of that as they possibly can. Number 5 is supplies. The British have 7 in that. The Americans have 1, but their army bonus gives them a +2. So it's 3 plays 7. And that's another huge win for the British. 4 in supplies. We have sacked the arsenal. Ignore all low ammunition results in the game. Wowzers. This does negate any low ammo markers placed on your units by your opponents in events. Award 3 extra ammunition markers to the army. Wowzers, that's massive. So no low ammo for the British. They're chocker. So three ammo markers I'm going to give the guns, 1 each, and I think I'm going to have to give it to the Scots. Hey, first time on the table, you can have some extra ammo, boys. Good on you. Right, artillery, which is 6. The British have 4 in this, but they get +2 for artillery advantage, so they're up to 6. And the Americans put 7 in it, and they gain 1, so they're up to 8. The British did pretty well. They got 3. And the Americans did rubbish. They got 1. So that's a win by 2 to the British again. Berserkers, the Legion Dragoons, have raided the enemy artillery park in the last evening. Award 2 extra ammunition markers to the field guns, 3 ammunition markers to your army. Take ownership of any single hill, unless occupied by the enemy units. Ignore any mounted commanders and reposition it so it touches your base edge. You can move other scenery a few inches to make room enough and then place your field guns upon it, if desired. Okay. So recapping, I've moved the hill from the American left flank to the British left flank, and I've awarded 3 extra ammo markers to the 64th, the 42nd, and the Dunop Hessian Battalion. So that is artillery. Let's move on to random events. Random events, the British have 3 and the Americans have 5. Missed that dice roll, but the Americans won that by 3, so I'm not re-rolling it. They need a win. 3. Oh my gosh, this is a biggie. 3 is a biggie. General Quinton has changed sides. You tosser. A turncoat. This will affect the morale of the army. 2 opponent's units. The opponent's choice must fall by 1 level. On or off the table units, including flankers. An average unit would become raw. Oh, jeepers. Okay, so I think I'm going to make the Indians raw, and I think I'm going to make the Hessian Grenadiers average. So there you go. That was a shocker. Good win for the Americans. Right, number 8, weather. The Americans have got 5 in that, +1 because of army advantages, so they can sum up to 6, and the British have only got 1. So this is going to be another tail of woe for the British, I feel. Unless the Americans have a shock and roll. And the Americans didn't have a shock and roll, they got 2. So weather, damn hot out there, sir. Due to march fatigue, an enemy infantry unit will be reduced by a quality, the opponent's choice, on off the table. So going to reduce another one. Oh my God, the British Army is falling apart. Falling apart, boys. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. I think I'm going to make the 42nd raw. So the 42nd's gone down to raw. Oh my gosh, that's bad. Right, last one. Last one is local support. The British have 3 in that, and the Americans have 5 +1 for their army modifier. So 3-6. Oh, it's jeepers. That's another big one for the Americans. 3. Helpful fellows from the Bicon county have helped our nighttime advance. 2 own units can be placed in any buildings or woods not occupied by the enemy bases. They can be placed in the same or different templates. They must be clear path the units back to their own base edge. They can adopt any formation or facing, and the brigade commander may join these units. Wow, they don't really want to do that. There's only one building and they're already occupying it, so it was a big win, but it was a nothing. Right, so after all those scenario events, let's recap where we are because we're ready to kick off. See, we'll start on the British right. So they've got their artillery there. They've repositioned that hill. The artillery's got extra ammo. None of the units can go low ammo for the whole game, which is astounding. The British Converged Grenadiers is ready to go. Unfortunately, the Hessian Grenadiers have dropped their morale down to average. They're not at all happy with the proceedings, the hot weather, turncoat. It's all gone wrong. Wrong. Over here, the 46, they're also feeling the pinch. They've gone down to raw as well, so they're not happy. They've got extra ammo though, and so has the Dunop Regiment or Battalion. The Scots. Yes, they got extra ammo and they're ready to go. I'll do it a Scottish accent, but it sounds like a drunk Irish pirate, really, so I won't bother. Over here, the 64th also has extra ammo, and they're in the trees ready to go. And right down on the British right, the Dragoons were told to go there, but they decided not to. So they're still approaching the British lines as a reinforcement. Let's cross over to the Americans now. Pre-game events was a bit of a mixed bag for the Americans. I mean, they lost 7 stands before they started, which is bad. They've still got 5 stands in this town facing nobody, so that's pretty good. They've got some guns coming up the road, but the 2nd Maryland that was ahead of them, they've stopped. They're resting, just off table. It was a hard march. They're not happy. So they'll come on as a reinforcement. The brigade commander's up there going, where is everybody? Over in the centre, the 9th and the 5th Pennsylvania boys, they lost 3 bases between them, so they're still good. They're still in a strong position, but they took a lot of their troops didn't make it to the field. Again, the French, they didn't come up either, which is a bit of a blow. Hartley's battalion also lost, or Hartley's regiment also lost a stand, and as did the boys in the trees. In the flanking area, the British have already picked up 2 of their 9 tokens, so they're in the lead there, but their Indians are raw, so that's no good at all. Right, we're ready to kick off. This is actually take 2. I made a few horrid mistakes, missed out the morale checks and messed up low ammo and a few other things. So I've reset. I've put a couple of supply wagons down there to remind me that the British can't go low ammo this entire battle. And we're going to rock into the first turn of the game. I'll try and bounce between recaps and demonstrating a few rules and a few firefights. I won't go too deep into the rules, mainly because I don't know them. So there you go. All right, let's kick off with turn 1. Right, first thing in the turn is morale checks. We haven't got any of those, so no one's suffered any casualties. Then move commanders. They're all pretty much in the right positions, so there's no replacing commanders. So now we're going to activate the CNC and see if he can give any rerolls to his brigade commander here in the centre. So he needs anything but a 3. 9 minus 3, he gets 6 rerolls. So this guy's got 6 rerolls. He's going to start by activating the guns. They automatically activate, so they just roll for pips, and they're going to get 6 pips. So they're going to move up twice, but they're just going to stay out of 8-inch musket range. They can't unlimber because they need to do any manoeuvre changes at the start of their move. So they've moved twice. They're ready to unlimber next turn and start shooting canister into the poor Pennsylvanian boys. He'll now activate the Scots because they're nice and close. And they're activated. And they're going to roll 1 pip. He's going to use one of his re-rolls that I've picked up. He's going to use a re-roll to re-roll that, and they're going to get 6 pips. So they're going to expand out for 1, and then they're going to double move forward for 2 more. So that leaves them with 3 pips. They're in long range, so they can fire. First round costs 1 pip, and then they can do a second round if they've got 2 pips left, which they have, so they're going to get 2 rounds of shooting in. They've only got 3 dice in the front rank, so they need 5s or 6s to hit. Oh, is it a good opportunity to shoot? I think they will. So they've got 1 hit. They're average, so they can re-roll 2s and 1s. So they'll re-roll the 1. They still only get 1 hit. British can save on anything but a 1 because they're behind cover and it's at long range. And they pass that. Because it's first fire, the British can make them re-roll that. So they still pass. So in retrospect, that might have been a bad move. Second round of shooting, they've got another 1 hit, and they get a re-roll on that 1. No, just the 1 hit. 2, they're just missing out. Just missing out on those. Okay, I should have moved my British commander up. Didn't think that out properly. But there you go. Warm it up. So they're over for so they're going to pay 2 points plus 2 because they're average, so they need 4. Then they're in the woods, so 5, and then they're over 12 inches, so that's 2 more. So they need 7 on 2d6 to activate these boys. And they get it. And they're going to get 4 pips. So I think they'll expand out. And that costs them 2 because you expend an extra pip when you're moving in woods. So they're down to 2 left. And they'll come out of the woods. Now coming out of the woods, they've actually reached the edge of the woods, so they're going to have to roll for disorder. And it's a 5, so they're disordered. 4, 5, or 6 for average, 5 or 6 for veteran, 3, 4, 5, or 6 for raw. So they've become disordered coming out of the woods. Right, last brigade. He's got the same issues here. He is within 12, so he's got 2. They're raw. That makes it 5. 6 for being in the terrain, and 7 for the distance. And he just gets 7, so they're fine. And they're going to get 5 pips. So I think they're just going to come out of the terrain, which costs them 2 because they're in the terrain. And then they'll have to make a disorder roll. 2. So even though they're raw, they're fine. So that's the first British brigade taken care of. Let's move across to their right flank now. Over on their right, we've got our commander here, well, our other right, which is really our left. He'll it's best to activate the guys closest, because they can get better chance of activating. But we'll go with the Grenadiers because they're a 1, he's a 1. They're not over 6 inches apart. These trees don't really count as terrain. So anything but double 1s. So they're fine. They're going to get just 2, but because they're veteran, they can go up to 3. So I think they'll expand out for 1. These trees aren't really doing anything. And then they'll come forward for a second one, and then they'll come forward again. So the Grenadiers are more than keen for a bit of argy-bargy. Right, next they'll activate the Hessian Grenadiers that are now just average, and they're fine. And they're going to get 3 pips. So again, they might expand out. For 1, and advance into terrain, which will cost them 2. They don't make a disorder roll until they get to the other side of the terrain, far edge, and then they'll make a disorder roll. So they're just going to have words to the nice man waving his hat about. Next we have these boys, and they are outside 6. So that's going to be 4s up, and they roll a 3, so they don't get an activation. They've failed. However, everything gets a residual single pip if they fail to activate. So they can't go into the terrain because that costs them 2. They can, however, expand out. But they're not going to get too far out because the Grenadiers are going to get in their road. So they'll expand out for 1. And I think the guns will just unlimber for 1. So next the British roll for reinforcements. They're going to try and bring the 16th Dragoons on the road. They need a 4 up, and they rolled a 2, so they missed out. They get another chance next turn. So that's the British turn. Not much shooting. Last thing we can do is roll for flanking manoeuvres. Okay, it's over to the flanking rolls. We'll do the dice total up once because it remains the same, and then after that we'll just roll them and work them out. So each side starts with 5 dice. Then they get 3 dice for every unit that's strength 5 and above. So the British get 2 lots of 3 because they've got 2 units 5 or better. The Americans get 1. Then the Americans get 1 for the cavalry because it's under 4 stand strong. Then the Americans get 3 for an elite commander or expert commander. The Britishers get 1 for their average commander, but they get 2 because they have a light unit in there. They also -1 because their engines are raw. So it works out to 13 dice to 12, I believe. So we'll roll those. Whoever gets the most 5 or 6s gains flanking chips. So the Americans got 4 and the British got 4. So no one's gaining any. It shouldn't be there. So no one's gaining any flanking chits. So British is sitting on 2, Americans zip. Right, we're into the American turn. Morale checks, they haven't got any. No commanders to replace. So it's over to move commanders. This guy's not really going to help anyone sitting right out there. So he might move over and assess the situation with the Pennsylvania boys, and he gets more than enough movement to do that. C pops over there. Now he's going to try and give them 3 rolls. Anything over 4. He's a 1. He's poor 3, so that's 4. So he loses that. He gets 1 re-roll. That's all he's got. We'll go with this. We'll go with this lad. He'll try and activate these boys. 3. That won't be enough. So he'll use his only re-roll to re-roll the 1. 6. They are 2 and he's 5, so he just scrapes in. The good old re-roll. So they get 4 pips. So they could fire twice at those Scots. I'd use up their first volley, but they have got 5 dice, so I think they'll do it. 5s or 6s to hit. That's a pretty good roll. 3 hits. They can re-roll the 1s and 2s. No. So the British are saving on anything but a 1. Because they're at long range. And they saved all of them. So that's cost them a pip. They're going to spend 2 more for a second volley. That's a big squat, but they can re-roll 2s and 1s. They got 1 hit. So the British can make 1 save. And they did. So a big load of nothing there. It's very hard to manoeuvre units in this game, so if he tries to shuffle that way, he's actually got to turn and march, but he can't turn back because he only gets a single move. So he's either got to turn around and fall back from the fence or sit there. I think he's just going to stay put. So that's the centre done. Let's have a look at the American left. He'll activate the guns. 2. That's not very good. Normal move 6, they get an extra 4 inches on the road. So they're going to move up to there. They can't unlimber on the same turn as they move, so that's where they're going to go. The other guys in the farm will just remain there for now. I don't know if they want to come out, because if the cavalry comes on, they could be in trouble. So they'll sit there. Let's go over to the American right flank. Okay, I think the first thing the Americans will do is activate their gun on the hill, and that's going to get 6 pips. It can shoot a maximum of 4 dice in a turn, so it's eyeing up those juicy grenadiers. They're not within short range, they are within long. So he's going to give them 4, 5s or 6s. Just 2 hits. British saving anything but a 1. And they save both of them. And the next thing he'll do is activate Hartley's boys. Yeah, and they're keen. They can get 3. It's whether they hold their fire or crack off a volley now. They're out of short range, but they're well within long. I think they're going to hold their fire. I don't think the French are going to do anything. I think the militia in the woods might try and activate. And they're fine, and they're going to get just 2 pips. So because they're open order, it doesn't cost them 2 to move in the woods, and they don't get disordered when they reach the edge of terrain. So they're going to move up, and that's going to cost them 1 to reach the edge, and I think they're going to spend the second one by shooting at the grenadiers. So they get 4 dice. However, they have moved into close range, so the Grenadiers could fire first with opportunity shooting, which they will. They're just within the middle 2 bases, so it's 5s or 6s. That's a lousy roll, but they're veterans, so they can roll 3s up, so you're going to re-roll all these. And they didn't do any better. So Americans get 1 save. They're in cover, so it's a 6, 1. It's anything but a 1, and they're fine. And they're going to shoot 4 shots back. It's British's first volley, so they can force them to re-roll that. No. They haven't hit squat. They can re-roll the 2. They hit the British once, and the British save it. This is the first volley, so they can force them to re-roll it, and they still save it. So the Americans are going to try and bring on the 2nd Maryland down the head of their road, and they fail. The only thing left to do is roll for the time clock. And it goes down 6 from 21 to 15. Start of the British, turn 2. There's no morale checks. No one suffered any casualties. Move commanders. We'll move our Central Brigade commander up. He's got 8 to 16 inches, so he's going to come right up here. We'll move our CNC. He's got 666s, so he's got more than enough movement to jump the gate and come right up here. And then our last commander down here, he's probably just going to leap the fence and move up here. We'll roll to see if our commander can give our Central Brigade commander any re-rolls, and he's rolled double 1s. So no, he's going to get no re-rolls this turn. Okay, it helps to push record when you're filming. So we activated guns first. They got 5 pips. They unlimited for 1. And they shot 4 rounds of canister into the 5th Pennsylvania. They did 2 hits. The Pennsylvania boys only managed to save 1, so they've taken half base casualty, and they've taken 2 morale checks, 1 for taking casualties and 1 for being hit by artillery, but they managed to avoid being disordered. We're now going to try and activate the Scots. Three, that's just enough because they're 2s and he's a 1. No, he's 2 as well, so they've failed. So that's a fail. So all other units in the brigade get 1 pip. That's a horrendous blunder for the British. These guys are disordered. I still think they get their 1 pip, so they're going to try and remove the disorder, and they do. I'll check that with the rules, but I think they can. The Scots are going to expand for their 1 pip, but they can't do anything else. And I think the 46 will do the same, which enables the Pennsylvanian boys to fire on opportunity fire. So they've got 4 shots. They're disordered. Oh, they're not disordered. So 4 shots, 5s or 6s. They're average, so they can re-roll 2s. And they're going to get 2 hits. The British need to save on 4s up because they're at close range. And they saved both of them. Oh, good. Go the 46th. Go, boys. So that's the British centre done. Right over to the British left. Their commander's going to activate the guns first. And they're only going to get 2 shots. They'll go at Hartley's boys. Double 1s is low ammo, but they ignore low ammo and they can use their extra ammo to re-roll, which I've finally remembered to do. 5, so they get 1 hit anything but a 1. And they rolled a 1. So that's two morale markers because they got hit by artillery. And they've rolled a 6, so they're disordered. Oh my gosh. Hartley's boys are falling to pieces, and they're going to take a half-base casualty. So that's no good for Hartley's boys. Not at all. I think the Americans at this stage of the game will take the opportunity to shoot with the lads in the wood because they're in short range. So they're going to fire 4 dice, re-rolling 2s, and those boys can't hit a bean. They're a bit nervous. Our man will activate the woeful grenadiers. Yep, and they'll move past the first objective. They've got 4 pips. It's going to cost them 2 pips to move once. They'll spend a 3rd pip to get to here. They've reached the edge of the thing, so they've reached the end of the train, so they've got a test for disorder. And no, they're not disordered. Okay, we'll try Dunop's regiment next. And they've activated. And they're going to get 4, so they're going to cross into here for 2 and move again for 3. Last thing to do is the British Grenadiers. So the Grenadiers have activated. They've got 3 pips. They'll get +1 for being veterans, so they'll get to 4. And they can't get into these guys because they need to wheel for 1 pip and then 2 pips to move, but they need 2 pips to initiate combat, so they can't get into anyone really. They'll expand for 1 and then they'll crack 2 volleys into these guys in the woods. 5 dice needing 5s or 6s. They can re-roll 3s up, 3s down because they're Grenadiers. So you get 2 hits. Anything but a 1 saves. They save both of those. And they'll try again. It's kind of a waste of time shooting at them because they ignore their first hit. Double 1s that go low ammo, but they can't because they've got so much ammunition stocked up. They're going to get 3 hits this time. But the British save all. So British will try and bring on their cavalry again on the road, 4 up. No, they've failed. So all that's left to do for them is to roll for flanking manoeuvres. 5-5, another dead heat. No flanking manoeuvres getting anywhere close to the table. Just before we move on to the British turn, we'll probably go back and do some first volleys that I forgot. So these boys shot at the British. They made 2 saves, but it is their first volley, so they can force the British to re-roll those 2 saves. And they failed both of them. So there you go. So they're going to pick up 2 morale markers, and they're going to lose a stand, and they're going to roll 2 disordered dice. But they don't go disordered. The Grenadiers could also force these guys to re-roll, but because they only got 1 hit and they ignore the first hit, it's pretty pointless. Right, so let's move over to the American turn now and see how we get on. So we'll start the turn with morale checks. The 5th Pennsylvania's got 2 morale tokens on them, so that's 2 dice. They got hit. One of those was an artillery hit, so there's their 2 dice. So roll those. And 4, 5, or 6 is a fail, so they got 1 fail, which steady units are allowed formation change, 1 wheel, but no movement increments. So that's them go. That's them done, and those 2 markers now come off. These lads have also got to check morale. They're rolling 2 dice. and they've got also one fail. So they come off and they can't move this turn. They can wheel or change formation, but that's it. So next we move commanders. There's no commanders to move, so they're all where they should be. So we're going to see if this lad here can give it our middle brigade any rerolls. So anything above a 4 graduates a reroll. So they're going to get 7 rerolls. That's pretty healthy. The first thing we'll do is activate our brigade commander over by the Saunders residence, and he's going to activate the gun, and they're going to get 5 chits. They're going to deploy. So they're going to deploy for 1, and they can deploy any facing they like, and they've got 4 pips left, so they're going to fire 4 rounds into the oncoming 64th. Fives and sixes are hits. They've got 2 hits. They're firing through the scenery, so the British save on anything but a 1. And they save both of them. I don't think we'll activate the guys in the Saunders residence. They're going to stay there with the chickens. We'll move across to the centre now, and he is going to attempt to activate the 5th Pennsylvania. And he does. And they are going to get 2 pips. They'll use a reroll to reroll that, and they'll get 6 pips. So I think they'll shoot twice into the British unit there. But the British unit is in close range, so they can opportunity fire first, which they most certainly will. And they've got 4 dice. They can re-roll that because it's model, and they can re-roll 2s and 1s. So they get 1 hit. And the Americans will save that on anything above a 2. So they save that. The British will also open up with canister on the gun, and they can, as an opportunity canister shot, they get 3 dice. And they'll hit twice. And I believe they saved that as well. So now the British, the Americans, the 5th will crack around into the 64th. They can re-roll. They've got low ammo because they rolled double 1s. And they can re-roll 2s and 1s. So they're just going to hit once. But the British don't save it. So they're going to take another morale counter. And they're going to take a casualty. So it was kind of a foolish move to extend my line out that way. I should have extended the British line out and wheeled, or maybe not even extended at all, just wheeled this way, and I could have shot at them without being shot at, but now they're taking a pounding. And the Americans have got 1 more round of shooting up their sleeve. They've got no hits, but they've got 2 re-rolls. But because they're low ammo, the opponent can force them to pick up all those dice and re-roll them, but they're not going to. They're just going to let them re-roll the 2 1s, and they're going to get 2 hits because they're at close range, and the British are going to fail to save another one. So they're going to take whole base off. They're going to put another round counter there, and they need to take 2 disorder checks for both casualties. And they've rolled a 6, so they're going to go disordered. So chances are those boys could be running away. They could have come up, taken a real licking, because I deployed them out the wrong way, and I think I've learnt a lesson the hard way there. Moving across to the 9th Pennsylvania, they're going to try and activate. 5, that's just enough. They're going to roll for pips. They get 3. I think they'll use another re-roll and re-roll that. and they've rolled a 2. They can't re-roll again. So they're going to crack 1 round of shooting off into the Scots. 5 dice. They've also gone low ammo. They've hit once, but they can re-roll the 1s. And they'll hit twice. The British will save on anything but a 1. Oh, and the British failed again. They're having a shocker. So the Scots are going to take a casualty. Are they disordered? Yep, they're disordered. They've seen their mates, this 46, get a pounding, and they're a bit hesitant about going forward. So they're disordered, and they've got 1 morale check. Moving across to the American right, they'll activate the guns first, and they'll get 4 shots, which is the maximum. Right, they're going to put their 4 shots against these guys. They're 5 or 6s to hit. They're going to get 2 hits. They're normally a 3 up because they're in short range, but they've got cover, so they're going to be a 4 up. And then they've also failed. They've also failed a save. Are they disordered? Yes, yes they are. Of course they are. So they're going to take a disorder marker, a half-base casualty, a morale check for taking a casualty, and an extra 1 for being hit by artillery. So the next thing we'll do is activate Hartley's boys. Yep. And how many pips do they get? Hartley's boys have rolled a 1. They're disordered, so I think they just go down to a single chit. So they'll try and remove the disorder, and they can't, so they stay disordered. So they're not doing much. Next, our commander will try and activate the French. Let's use the right coloured dice. Activate the French, and they're fine. And they're going to get 2. So they can crack 1 round off at the Hessian infantry behind the hedge. So they're going to get 4 shots, 5s or 6s. They can re-roll 2s and 3s because they're veterans. They're going to get 2 hits. British making 2 saves on anything but a 1. And they've rolled a 1. It's first volley, so the French can force them to re-roll, but they don't want to because British are taking a half-base casualty at a morale check. And are they disordered? No. Surprise, surprise. The last thing the Americans have got to do is activate the boys in the woods, but the British are going to opportunity fire first with 5 dice. They'll get 1, and they're veterans, so they get to roll 3s and below, so everything else is a re-roll. Oh, they're going to get 4 hits. So there's normally 3s. It's 1 worse for close range, but 1 better for in the woods. So basically anything but a 2 or a 1. And they failed 1, but because they're in open order, they can ignore their first hit, so they're fine. So they're going to return fire with 4 shots. They're going to try and activate first. And they activate, and they're going to get 6 pips, so they're going to get at least 2 rounds of shooting. First round, they can re-roll the 1. They've got 2 hits. The British are saving on 4 up. And they didn't save one. Are they disordered? No, but they're going to take a morale token and lose half base casualties. And then the Americans will fire again. And they're going to get another 2 hits. And the British will fail to save another one, so they'll take another base off. They'll take another morale check, and they'll test again. 5, they're fine. So that was a bit of a shocking round for the British. Americans will try and bring on their reserve. Yep. So the second Maryland starts to arrive, and they'll reduce the time clock by just 2. So down to 13 turns to play. Right, due to upload restraints, I'm going to call it there. We'll just do a quick recap before we switch off, and then hopefully you'll join me next time for part 2 and the conclusion of this battle. You can see in the Saunders farm, those boys haven't done much at all. They're a bit worried about the British cavalry that hasn't turned up yet. They know it's coming, so they're just waiting. Over here, the guns have deployed, and they're starting to warm up and shoot into the British 64th as it crosses the field there. The Americans had a great round of shooting. They hurt the Scots. They kicked the living bejeebers out of the 46 to a raw, and they'll be rolling 4 dice in the morale check phase next time, so they could be running, I'd say. But they're low ammo, so both units have gone low ammo. So hopefully the British guns can soften them up a bit. I really made a mistake there. I should have deployed out the opposite way with the 46, so they weren't getting shot at, and they could have gone with a bayonet, but I didn't, so I paid the price. There you go. You live and you learn. Over here, the Hessian boys have made it up to the fence, but they've also suffered some casualties, and they're disordered. They've got morale checks next time. The British Grenadiers, they're in trouble. They're out in the open. They've got to roll a couple of dice, so there's a likelihood they're not moving either. So the British Army is basically completely stalled, and it is in danger of absolutely getting shot to ribbons before crossing the pitch. Anyway, if you've made it this far, thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll catch you in part 2. Just before we wind the video up, I just want to clarify a couple of quick mistakes I made. I've made quite a few, but these 2 I really wanted to fix. First of all, the Hessian Grenadiers, they saved the cannon fire on a 3 and a 4, which is enough, so they didn't take any casualties. I got that wrong. It's normally saved on a 3 behind cover, so anything 2's up, so anything but a 1, and they rolled a 3 and a 4, so they're fine. And the other mistake I made was Hartley's boys, they had 2 morale markers and they had a disorder marker, so they needed to roll 3 dice. So I rolled an extra dice. You can probably just see it over there in the corner, and it was a 1, so that didn't change any results. So there's a lot more mistakes in there, but I just wanted to correct those right at the end of the video. Cheerio.